I'm Heather Miltenburg, Winnipeg photographer, and you're watching On the Spot.
Our special guest for this episode of On the Spot is Heather Miltenburg. She is the creator of mirrorless photography and also the woman behind the camera for these comic-based photos that are absolutely stunning, along with other portraits as well, and has also rented our studio. So welcome and thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So happy you're here. Most recently, this past October, you were at Comic-Con C4 here in Winnipeg. Were you invited by the organizers?
Nope, I just go and I do my own thing. And I set up shoots all on my own, and I developed some posters, and I got a bunch of people that booked with me, and no, so I wasn't invited by the organizers.
Oh, wow. Sounds like fun, though.
Yeah.
You also got the chance then to sit down and photograph a famous, well-known cosplayer, Rayu Lavitz, who is originally from New England, living in Boston now, from what I read. How did you get such an awesome opportunity?
Well, actually, I've been a fan of Ryu for a really long time. And what I did before she came, I heard she was coming to C4, and so I just sent her a message, and I offered to host a free shoot with her. And I could work around her schedule, and she got back to me and she was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. So she was wearing 3 costumes for all 3 days, and I took the initiative, and I was like, well, let's do all 3 if you want. And the first day went really well, and she was on time and everything. I was so surprised because I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to be waiting for her, but no, she was really, really cool, super ready to go, an awesome model, awesome to work with. And now really good friends, so yeah, it was awesome working with her, and I'm so glad that she got back to me. It was the best thing ever, honestly. Like, working with models as for photographers, like, you learn so much depending on the model. Like, they teach you, right, like photographers, because they know how they look the best. So you, like, as a photographer, you know the basics, right? But the model themselves, like, they know what they look good doing, and Ryu definitely knows exactly what makes her look good. And so we just went with the flow, and she called a lot of the shots, and and I would tweak some of the shots, and it was a great collaboration. So yeah.
Wow, from hearing from when I was younger, is I always thought it was the other way around, is that it's the photographer that calls all the shots, not the model.
It's both, honestly. Like, when you're working with a professional model who really knows what they're doing, it's both. I find that a lot of photographers can be a little overconfident in their abilities, and they always think that they know best, but it's really good to kind of stay humble, and you're always learning, you're always working with different people, and those people know how they look good, right? Especially if they're professional models. They've been doing this for years, so it's definitely a collaboration. I would never say that the photographer is the one that should be calling all the shots. The model is definitely somebody who is the biggest help when you're a photographer. Like, and if they're feeling comfortable with you and they're doing what they're comfortable, you're going to get better pictures. So that's a good thing to keep in mind too. So I always take that with me when I'm, shooting people.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Who else have you photographed from the famous anime cosplay world?
No one yet, other than Ryu. But a lot of Winnipeg cosplayers who I'm a big fan of. Ashqui Cosplay is super awesome. She's a great cosplayer. I love shooting her. A lot of my favorite photos are from Ashqui Cosplay. Who else? Miko Fire Cosplay is also, I'm a big fan of her, and I love shooting her whenever I get the chance. And a lot of other Winnipeg cosplayers that, I love seeing the variety. I love shooting different people. and it's just always such a blast when I get to, you know, take a new project and go crazy with it. And especially if they're just like, yeah, do whatever. And I'm like, okay. So, yeah.
A lot of Mirrorless Photography's recent Facebook posts is a lot of anime and cosplay. So other than C4 Comic-Con here in Winnipeg, where else have you gone for these photo shoots?
Just C4, yeah.
Just
I've
C4.
only been doing this for about 1.5 years now.
Really?
I know, yeah.
You're so talented for only 8 years.
Thank you. I actually started out as a nature and bird photographer, so that was about 5 years ago. And the past 1.5 years, I've expanded into, you know, portrait photography and mainly cosplay photography. So my portfolio is it's quite expansive, I find, for just a year. But I definitely have plans to go like elsewhere in the world and, you know, take photos of cosplayers there for sure. And like San Diego is definitely on my bucket list to do sometime soon. I think I need to perfect my skill a little bit more before I do that, but you know, definitely that's something I'm down to do. I'm going to be doing it soon, so yeah.
That was actually one of my other questions
Oh,
later
sorry.
on.
Yeah, okay.
So eventually you want to end up at Comic-Con International in San Diego.
Yeah, of
which,
course.
by the way, is one of the largest known Comic-Con conventions, or comic conventions, I guess that's why they call it Comic-Con,
Yeah.
but in the world. That is definitely a huge future goal.
Yeah, and not only for the cosplayers, but for the other cosplay photographers, right? Because that's where everybody goes. That's where you can learn so much from people, you know, in that community. Like, so it's, and then there's also the stuff that I love to just spend money on and buy. So that it's all everything together. It's just like a super bucket list thing. So yeah.
Wow. Considering all these comic-based photos that you do, like obviously there's a lot of special effects and computer detailing. How many years or training of schooling have you had to go through to get to this point?
Yeah, well, none. So yeah, no. I started learning on my own, and it just kind of went crazy from there. So I developed my own style. Obviously, I watched a ton of YouTube videos to learn different techniques, and I've kind of developed my own workflow based on that. But no, I've never had any like formal education in either photography or graphic design. So it's kind of just been an interest of mine that's just kind of like, it started out as like this mini obsession, which is common with me. I get like little mini obsessions and I'll learn to do weird things like code and, you know, paint, and it's like weird things that just tend to go away after like a month or a few months. But this one kind of like, first it came and went, and then it just stuck. And now it's just like this thing that I do, and I do it a lot, and it's just kind of grown from there. And I think that's when an obsession becomes a passion, and now I definitely call it a passion. So yeah.
For being self-taught, you are very talented for that.
No
problem. You spoke just recently about being a nature photographer. You've also done portraits for people and their pets and all that fun stuff. So how do you compare the difference between shooting portraits or nature compared to shooting fantasy?
All right, well, I'm going to split that one up.
Yes.
Okay, so nature is definitely different because you have nothing to prove, basically, to your clients because it's like a rock or like a plant or a bird, right? Like, they don't care. So that's why it was nice to start out as, right? Because then you can perfect your skill and nobody's really judging you. And also it's nice to get out in nature, like be around stuff like that, right? And it's also different because of the different techniques that you're using, and you're not using like Photoshop and like Lightroom as much, and doing the photo manipulation. So it was a good starting point for me. I'm glad that I started there. And then evolving into the portraits, compared to the cosplay that I do, I would definitely say there's a difference in the type of people that you work with, because the type of people that want portraits and family photos versus the type of people that want cosplay photos, I definitely gel better with the people who want cosplay photos. So that's one reason why I'm in love with doing them, and I'm not super into doing the portraits. I like doing them, and you definitely meet good people. But for me, they're not as interesting. but the techniques you use definitely differ in terms of, for portraits, you're bound to use a studio, not all the time, but with headshots and things, you're in a studio, and you don't really get to flex as much of the, you don't get to be as free as you would be with cosplay. Like, you really have to use your imagination with cosplay, whereas with portraits, like, there's standard poses that you can run through, and there are ways to make it more interesting. Like fantasy portraits I love to do, right? But when it comes to like regular portraits, I feel like I'm a little bit in the box there, and I don't like to be in the box. So with cosplay photography, I feel like I get to really be myself, and I feel a lot more comfortable shooting it. So yeah, I think those are kind of the differences, so for me.
So you obviously prefer the cosplay
For
fantasy.
sure, yeah.
Definitely sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
How long have you been a photographer?
Well, like I said, the past 5 years, well, I started out in nature photography, so I guess technically 5 years, but like, can you really call yourself a photographer at the beginning? Like, I don't know, so I'll say 5 years-ish, but working with people, the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, that's kind of where I define myself as a photographer, because that's when I kind of started receiving money for my work, so yeah, I guess, like 2 years-ish.
You also put on some of these cosplay events where you just go out for cosplay photo shoots. How, like, is it you that puts it on, or is it other people that are like, hey, come down, Heather, we want you, come take our pictures? It
actually started with a very good friend of mine named Adriano Ali. Very, very good friend, and he is the one who organizes most of the shoots. I have a really busy schedule, so putting on one of these shoots is hard for me, because I don't want to have to bail at the last minute, right? So when somebody sets it up, I'll always try to make it, and it's kind of nice to have somebody else be the driver and to kind of go with it and to be able to put my own spin on it, rather than being the manager of all the people that go. And kind of just making sure everybody's cool. I kind of like to go and just do my own thing, and not really have any expectations. So yeah, I've been thinking about setting up my own kind of free shoots, but again, like, my schedule's super busy. But maybe in the future, like
maybe.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah.
Sure. Wow. So being such a wonderful photographer, how can people contact you if they want to be a part of either the cosplay or part of just a portraits done by you?
Sure. I have a website. It's mirrorlessphotography.ca. I'm also on Facebook as Mirrorless Photos and Instagram as Mirrorless Photographs. So, yeah.
Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for stopping in on this freezing evening.
Do you want an adult hula hoop that has some flex and bend?
Are you a fan of handmade jewelry and accessories?
Getting ratchets from brand names? Would you like to try some 100% organic natural products?
Do you have a unique style and regular stores don't have what you need?
We have abstract, fan art, steampunk sculptures, and more unusual art. So come on down to 914 Cordon, second floor, right door.
Where strange is normal.
Hey everybody, welcome to On the Spot. I'm Ainsley Rivet. I have an artist here with me today. His name is Bradley Wohlgemuth of Renegade Pencil, and he has a lot of awesome stuff that I really hope everybody checks out. You can find him at renegadepencil.com, and we'll get into that at the end as well. Now, I would like to start off by welcoming you to our show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Now, you have like a whole lot of detail in your artwork. What goes through your mind when you are coming up with these pieces and kind of working out what you're gonna end up with at the end?
Well, every time I start with a drawing, it's usually about telling a story. So I usually think of some sort of narrative, and then I go from there. So everything, all the details in the drawing end up being about telling that narrative.
Okay.
And as I'm working, it's all about how to make all of those details come together to make that narrative stronger, so that when someone sees the drawing, they get an idea of what that story is with just a single image.
Awesome. So you want to like make somebody feel something with the image that you're like producing, like the same kind of feeling and thought that you are putting into that, you want them to be able to see clearly. So I think it's really awesome. So how long does it normally take you to create your art pieces? There's a lot of detail in your pieces, and I'd love to know kind of what goes into them.
Well, I usually spend about 30 hours on a single drawing, and that includes sketching, and then it's about 5 to 10 hours of that is sketching, and then about 20 hours of that is inking.
That is absolutely incredible. That is a lot of time for every piece, and I've looked at quite a few of your pieces that they have so much detail in them. It's incredible. So you have, coming up on the 20th of January, you have a show. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about that and, where people can get tickets.
Okay. It's called Legends of Tomorrow. It's next Friday, the 20th of January, and there are no tickets. It's a free show, so just come in and stop in. Also free snacks and a cash bar if that interests you.
Free food. Perfect. Awesome. So, what sort of stuff are you going to have at this show? Like, obviously, your ink is a huge part of this show. Are you just going to focus on the ink, or do you have something else that you're going to be showcasing as well?
The ink drawings are definitely the main focus. There are some other things, though. I've got a couple vector pieces there, so like vector drawings, and as well as I've got some, they're difficult to explain, kind of they're decal cut onto and then put onto metal. So it's actually a vector drawing cut into decal and then applied to metal.
Thank you so much for joining me here on the spot, Bradley Wohlgemuth. I'm very excited for your show on the 20th. I'm definitely going to be there. And I hope that everybody else is there too, because I'd love to see your faces. So thank you for being on the show with me today, and I hope everybody has a great night.
doing that. Bloopers. Raise your eyebrows.
She like looked at me like,
Yeah. And she's like, "Hey, baby.
Yeah.
How you doing?"
I'm like, okay. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. We're getting our laughs in. This is good.
See, this is why we should have done it in one take. Okay.